I'm Kate McKenzie, and today each of the panelists who are joining me are ATB X alumni. So what is ATB X? Well, we actually offer a free 2-month immersive accelerator program to help entrepreneurs grow their business. I'm an entrepreneur myself, and I know that when I first started, I just really wish that I had more people to turn to, not only for advice, but to have that community that would hold me accountable to my own goals that I had for my company. And really that's what ATBX does, is that we're committed to helping you reach your growth goals. And I would invite you that if you would like to learn more about ATBX and to apply for our next cohort, check out atbx.com or atb.com/ATBX, and we'll post that into our chat so that you can find out more there. At ATB, we also have some other ways to help you reach your business goals. Besides ATBX, we have a suite of entrepreneur services, including our entrepreneur strategists. This is a team of business advisors who will help you with advice, planning, and strategy. Their services are completely free, and you don't need to be an ATB client to meet with them. So I encourage you to check that out, and we'll have some links in the chat to tell you a little bit more about how you can do just that. Today, I'm joined by my colleagues Lindsay Davies and Stephanie Horner in the chat. So if you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat and they can reach out to you. Today's session is being recorded, and we will send out the slides in a few days following the session. All right, so today we are talking about how to scale your sales team, which is so huge. And I know a lot of you have already sent me emails to say, I'm so excited to hit the ground running with my sales right away. So congratulations, you're in the right spot. Today, I'm excited to be joined by 3 special guests, Marty Robertson, Amit Kalbra, and Carly Wells. Please feel free to add your questions throughout, and know that we'll have time at the end for questions as well. But before I dive into some of the questions with our guests, I want to throw a couple of quick thoughts your way. So I have some guiding questions that I think will be helpful as you think about expanding your sales team. I know I found this helpful for myself as I brought on new folks to my team to be part of our sales strategy, and as I've looked for other solutions around sales. So I'll invite you in the chat that if there's one of these questions that you're like, oh yeah, that's my question, I don't know if I'm really doing that with my team, let me know and ping it in the chat to say, hey, this is something I'd like to talk about more, and we'll prioritize that in our Q&A session later. So my first guiding question is, does everyone on your team know how to make a sale? This is a key piece that I find when I'm working with a lot of entrepreneurs is missing. So if someone in your team is able to make a sale, do they know how to take that great lead and direct it towards the right space? Do you have a consistent process, and are you using the same tools with everyone in your team to be able to help them make those sales? Does everyone understand who your audience is? Do they know what a great lead looks like? So can everyone on your team describe your demographic that you're trying to sell to? Do they know the personas that you're working with? Does everyone on your team feel confident to sell? Because we know that we always want to be selling. Your team should be your best ambassadors. So what's your onboarding process with those folks? I'll share a little story for myself, is that, I have the privilege of leading a group called the Secret 3K. And this is a walk run that's held every year to support creating safe spaces where everyone can run freely, despite gender, religion, cultural backgrounds. And so for our team, we were looking to partner with different groups. And I realized that my volunteers, my committees, they are some of our best ambassadors. And so we spend time talking to them about how they can talk about the Secret 3K, how they can promote it to partners. And, we wanted to really engage with schools and get schools more involved in this run walk. And I was reaching out to, one teacher, one principal at a time. But one of our team members said, you know what, actually, I have a whole school board that I could reach out to. And so by empowering her, she was able to amplify our efforts, massively. Instead of just reaching one person at a time, one sale at a time, we were able to exponentially grow because she felt confident to be able to make that sale. So I ask you that same question. Does everyone on your team feel confident to make that sale? And then I would ask, how can you make your sales process a little bit more efficient? So are there certain questions that you always ask to qualify a lead? Are there certain questions you ask to qualify a price point? And Are there follow-up documents that you always send for that type of communication? Are you using a CRM? These are some of the things you might want to ask if you're thinking about how to make it more efficient. How are you measuring what's working and also what's not working? So where are you finding your best 20% of your clients? When and how and who is closing your sales? What goals are you working towards? Some of these might be questions that you're looking to try to get answered. So I would invite you, if you're kind of like looking at these questions, let me know in the chat. Is there one of these questions you'd love us to talk about more? And we'll flip to that and talk about it a little bit more as we go. If there's one of those that you're thinking, I don't know that my business is totally hitting that out of the park, let's chat about that a little bit more. Love to hear from you and to hear what you're thinking on that regard. So let's bring in our first guest to discuss this a little bit further. Marty Robertson is going to be joining. Marty, I'll invite you to turn on your camera for me as I introduce you. Marty is the co-founder of 10% Recruiting. His recruitment firm matches skilled IT professionals with their clients with a unique upfront and transparent fee of 10% for all placements. You can learn more about Marty and about his company in the chat. We'll have some links posted for you there. Marty, tell me a little bit about yourself and your company.
Hi, Kate. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Pleasure to be here. Yeah, so as Kate alluded to, so we're an IT staffing company, primarily based in Alberta, and we specialize in the placement of full-time and contract resources specific to IT at the moment. We are branching into BC with a few clients, but we've been in business for about 3 years full-time. I have a co-partner, Roger Sanchez, who also heads up our other division, which is a cloud solutions company, which is separate from recruiting, but it's still IT. So we do everything IT to help customers. But primarily the 10% business is. I came from the industry. I came from recruiting. Worked for some of the large multi-billion-dollar firms in Edmonton, namely Randstad and Robert Half. Ran their offices in Alberta, and just was very passionate about building relationships, and we managed to build some good relationships with some key clients. So we ventured into 10%, and we're having a lot of fun trying to grow the business. Thank you.
And I can see you're already getting some shout outs in the chat here, Marty, from Melanie and Jeff are both saying hello. I know that you've worked with a lot of Alberta companies, and I know that you have a lot of businesses that come to you to help them find talent. I think for us today, we're talking about how to find that sales talent. What are some of your top sort of 3 tips about finding the right people?
Yeah, so I mean, no different than when I was managing the branches, and even my earlier days working in retail. I always what I've learned from some mentors is there's just 3 key areas that I focus on, or we focus on, when we're hiring salespeople specifically. So number 1, you want to make sure you hire for culture. Making sure, obviously, salespeople need to project enthusiasm. If they don't have it, no one ever died of it, right? So make sure you have that positive assessment tool to determine that upbeat, enthusiastic persona. Company values. Does this person match your values? Have they looked at your website? Do you have your values written? Are they coachable? So that hiring for culture, it's very critical that you hire that person that is going to work with you and your team to ensure that you have a healthy environment. Number 2 is that vetting process. So do they have good sales experience? Do they have success in sales? I always go back to, even, are they coachable? Listen, salespeople need to be coachable. If they're not, give me a call. I can share you some stories, and I don't mind helping any of you, because I've learned from the learned, right? So it's really critical salespeople are coachable. And the last thing with that vetting process, making sure they are a relationship manager. As Kate and I have talked about, one of my interview processes for that vetting is I'll take them out to a coffee shop, and I'll see how they treat the barista or the server. And if they're not kind and genuine to them, they're not going to be that way to your clients. So, and then the last thing is really important, and Kate and I have talked about this with ATB X back in the day, is that having the tech tools for your organization. So do you have a CRM? Do you have your financial tools? I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect like a large organization like ATB, but have some systems in place relative to CRM and your financial tools. Salespeople need operations. They need systems. So make sure you have that. And in that tech tool, that third bullet I like to focus on is make sure your onboarding and your operations is set up for day one, the laptop set up, that you don't want to have a bad experience for your new, not just a sales employee, but any employee. So those are my three areas that we like to focus on to ensure we have a, successful hiring.
Absolutely. And I noticed in the chat we're being asked about, what is a CRM?
I'm
And
sorry.
I
I'm
think,
sorry.
yeah,
Yeah,
go
so
ahead.
that's your customer relationship management software. So we're a recruiting company. So we have to keep track of our customer interactions. So we have a third party tool that we've purchased, and essentially all of our salespeople keep track of all those interactions, whether it be email or meeting, and essentially it's all uploaded into a database. And it keeps track of your contacts, so customer relationship management, right? So your contacts, your meetings, and then you have a new employee or you want to check to see what they're doing. You can go into that specific person, say Marty Robertson, and you can see all of the interaction that your sales person has had with Marty, with myself, right? So CRM it's good for an accounting business. It's good for ATB have a CRM. I mean, the
Absolutely.
company needs to use technology to your advantage and keep track of your customer interactions.
And I love what you're saying there too, Marty, about that having those kinds of tools, whether it's a CRM or other tech tools, that this is a way that we can actually attract top talent and have our salespeople that want to come to us because they see that we have some of those processes in place. And if you have more questions about that, I do encourage you to post in the chat. We'll come back to Marty later and we'll be asking him some more detail and get him to really dive into this. But I also just want to pick up on what you said about, taking someone out for coffee. I noticed Jeff said, yes, he loves the coffee test. He posted that in the chat. And I think it's really true, right? We want to make sure we're vetting people and vetting those sales folks to see how will they treat others, because they're going to be ambassadors of our product, of our brand, right? That's so key. So really appreciate you sharing that. I can think of, too, that not having some of these pieces in place can really put a company in a bad situation. So I've talked to folks that got hired on to do sales for a company and told me, you know what, Kate, I didn't actually get to do anything for the first 2 weeks because my laptop wasn't working. I couldn't access my CRM or whatever. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like we do not want to be, bringing someone on and then having them sit there stagnant for 2 weeks, right? So absolutely, I think that's essential. I'm wondering too, I imagine that you've had some examples of sort of the what not to do as well when we're searching for that top talent. Can you think of a story, Marty, that you could share that maybe a company you've worked with, and I'm not asking to name any names or anything like that, but just someone that you've worked with that maybe didn't take quite the right approach around finding that talent?
Yeah, so you want to, as an entrepreneur, I mean, you're all entrepreneurs, you're all talented, but be confident in your business model. So for instance, with myself, I've been in recruiting for about 15 years. So what I've learned is you want to stick to your guns, but be respectful. If your client doesn't, is being unrealistic. So for instance, in recruiting, we get some clients expecting, I call them purple squirrels. They're looking for a really specific type of skill. And sometimes it's not possible. And we just know from experience, most of our team, that it's not going to be possible. So you need to have that, let's call it a cruel but fair conversation with that client. So to be specific, we had one recent client that wanted, it would be like, so in developing, there's different languages, right? So if you don't know, there's just Java and .NET. It's a Microsoft programming language. So it would be no different in construction. There's plumbers and there's bricklayers, right? So usually you're a plumber or a bricklayer. To get both, it's very rare, right? That you have a plumber and a bricklayer, two different skill sets. So this particular client wanted a plumber and a bricklayer all in one, and so they wanted a developer with Java and .NET. So that usually doesn't exist. Not to mention a myriad of other skills. So we had to. We had to bite the bullet, but I had that cruel but fair chat with the client and said, this is not realistic. And, of course well, Marty, I'll hire someone else. I'm like, okay. So anyway, we found a candidate, and he or she doesn't have that skill. And we're like, listen, there's no one else that has this skill. So sure enough, to our, our benefit, I mean, I don't want to be cruel, but I knew there was no one else available. So 3 weeks came by, and this client called our sales associate and said, "We want to hire that resource," because you're not going to get a perfect candidate. So the lesson I learned is it was good that we won this. We won this, this fill. We placed this candidate that we knew was the only one available in Alberta. But you don't want to, you don't want to, take it out on the client and say, "I told you so." You want to be humble and just. But the fact of the matter is, he didn't apologize, and we stuck to our guns, saying this. There's no other people available for this fill. So it was a cool story, but I'm glad that my team and I stuck to our guns, and we were confident that we knew the market, and this type of resource they wanted didn't exist. So
that's key, right? Like, I think that we need to be realistic as well when we're doing that job hunt, when we're looking for these people to help fill our sales team, that we're not just looking for a unicorn. I guess, like, part of what I'm hearing from you too is that, that's part of the onus is on us as, as the founder or as the director of our company, to say, okay, I need to be realistic about what I'm looking for. And maybe it's not expecting someone to be everything that we're looking for.
Not going to happen. No.
Yeah, maybe we need to divvy that up into two separate roles, right, that are a little bit more niche. That might be an option for us. And I think that's really key what you're sharing there, that that we need to be mindful about our expectations, and I think too, mindful that we can have all the best, processes and all the best systems and tools, but we're only as good as our people. And Alan, you made a great point in there that you can have all the CRM tools you want, but if we don't have great people, that's huge. So being realistic about what is it we most need out of those people, right? I think you're really illustrating that well, Marty, and I want to thank you for that. I'm going to come back to you, Marty, but I want to go ahead and introduce our next guest. So I'll invite you to just turn off your camera for now. And our next guest is Amit Kabra. Amit, I'll invite you to turn your camera on for me as I introduce you. Amit is the founder of HopSkip Media, and as experts in pay-per-click, they improve the results of your digital ad campaigns by allowing your business to confidently delegate your online advertising, bringing in more qualified leads. You can find out more about what Amit is doing in our chat. We'll post some links there for you to find out more about her and her business. Welcome, Amit. So nice to see you. Tell me a little bit more about your business.
Oh gosh, where do I begin? We're an online marketing agency that works with or specializes in pay-per-click advertising. So that's Google ads, Facebook, Instagram is usually kind of our main, and we do a little bit of LinkedIn and some Pinterest and Snapchat, but I don't really know if I really want to keep them, just because it's really hard to find specialists. Like, I really believe in finding specialists in platforms versus like someone who's a generalist, and it's very hard to find it for those three platforms. So we're starting to look at possibly just doing Google and Facebook really at this point. But yeah, I run a team of, I think it's 9 now. I've kind of lost count at this point. Oh
my gosh. And that's kudos to you and the growth that you've experienced. I think when you first came to ATB X, right, it was a much smaller team. And I think it's a huge testament to just how you've been able to reach your growth goals.
Yeah, and I mean, it's horrible to say, but COVID really helped with that, just because a lot of people started understanding that we need to be online when we can't go outside. So we went from basically a team of 3 to triple that within a year, really, at this point. So it's been really cool to see that happen, but also incredibly terrifying, because you're sitting there going, oh, wow, I didn't expect this to happen so quickly. Now, how do we adjust going forward?
Yeah, well, and I think that's exactly it. I think, a lot of companies are trying to adjust, and, not every company is able to scale their sales through hiring someone, right? That may not be accessible. I know talent can be really hard to find right now. And so sometimes we need some other solutions. And so I want to ask you sort of similar question I asked Marty, Amit, and that's, what are some of your top tips around those other solutions that we might consider when we're looking to expand and scale our sales?
I think the first one is kind of just altering or adopting a flexible sales culture, really, at this point. So in our company, we actually hired a director of sales and marketing in, I believe it was April. And what we initially had discussed was, let's do cold leads And that's basically your front. And then whenever warm leads or any referrals come in, I'll handle them, or you can take them, or whatever else it was. And what we started realizing about a month ago was that the cold lead generation isn't working. It just, especially when it comes to agencies or something with a longer buying cycle, people need to be warmed up to you, but they also don't necessarily want to hear about what you have to offer them, if they're already working with someone, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So I went back and literally just went, okay, what has worked in the past? And for me, it was creating relationships with just random people. Honestly, if you follow me on Instagram or Twitter, I will literally have any conversation with you. It does not matter what it is. But like at the end of it all, it actually works really well for me, because then these people are like, okay, she's approachable, she's kind, she'll give me information when I need it. When we have a client that we don't want to take on, or like we hear about like maybe a social media agency looking for a PPC specialist or something, we always get referred to it. And that's strictly because I have those conversations and I'm active on social media, and I'm making sure that people understand that they can come to me for anything. So it's not necessarily focused on my niche, but within that relationship, I'm able to kind of carve out that space. We're going, I'm the expert. This is why you should trust me. So being able to look at that and shift your focus and go back to what was working before, because really at this point, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We all believe that we're supposed to do something amazing and cool and new. And that's what I thought when we hired Idris. I was like, cold leads, this makes sense, right? And then 3 months down the road, nothing's come in. And I'm going, it's time to change something about that. And it's literally just sticking to what's been working. So I think that's really a big point where I think a lot of business owners go, okay, what else can I add? Well, what can you amplify is really, I think, the better question really at this point. So for me, I've gone back to Instagram and started doing more posts, and now we're getting clients going, oh, I saw you on Instagram, that's why I came.
I think that's a really good point. And two great reminders that I'm taking with me from that. One is, that we need to be willing to change it up and to try some new things, but also to be mindful that, hey, if that approach didn't totally work, that's okay. Let's go back to what was working, but as you're saying, to amplify it, right? And I'd love to maybe dig into that a little bit more in terms of how is something like a pay-per-click, how could that help to amplify our current sales strategy? Can you give me maybe an example around that?
Yeah, in terms of pay-per-click, it really boils down to what your business is and obviously those margins, which we'll avoid talking about this right now. But really at this point, it's looking at where you think your customer base is and then confirming it through Google Analytics or something. So having Google Analytics on your website is now number one priority, because what happens is that you'll start seeing where the traffic is coming from. So if it's SEO, you'll see direct traffic or organic traffic. If it's from paid social, you'll see it there. And then from there, what you can do is kind of devise a strategy. So if you're seeing more traffic coming in from Instagram, then maybe that's a place that you want to advertise because there's already a warm audience. Let's amplify that a bit more. Let's find a colder audience that will actually likely become a warmer audience. And the same thing on the Google front. Are we showing up for like questions that people might have? So something for would be relevant to Marty is like how to hire someone, how to find an IT specialist, how to find something like that. So then those would be really great keywords for him to show up for, because that's already something that's working for him. He's just adding extra money to it to really just amplify it a little bit more.
And I like that. We're getting lots of love, by the way, for the Google Analytics suggestion. Beverly and Melanie are like, yes, please. We need more Google Analytics in our lives. And I think, it's a great point that you're making, that we can take what we're using and then add into that. So I love that your suggestion too around phrasing those as questions, right? The questions that people are going to be searching into Google and thinking about that way, so that our keywords are a little bit more, developed to what our user is actually going to do or what our client is actually going to do, right? So
you can even just go back to existing clientele and ask them what their questions are, or even going through your emails and thinking about what questions do I answer for them every single day. If they're asking you those questions, likely your potential customer are asking those questions into Google or maybe even Instagram. They're probably looking for like sales help or something. I've gotten a couple messages on Instagram where I didn't really believe that people would be looking for Google Ads help, but they're like, yeah, we just typed in Google Ads and your name came up. And I was like, Fantastic.
Which is
I guess this is a
amazing.
platform that makes sense for us, right? So it really just boils down to one, trying to think about what exactly your customer base is going to be saying, but then also acknowledging that you already have customers that likely could give you the answers anyway. So why go out, do all of this research when you could literally just have a 10, 20-minute conversation with an existing client?
So true. And I think that's something we often overlook is the importance of just going to our existing client and asking them, how did you find me? How, what makes me a great fit for you? And even to take it that next step and say, is there someone in your contact that you would maybe introduce me to that could become now a new warm lead, right? I think this is great. Thanks, Amit. I know we're going to come back for some more questions with you. And I'll invite people that if you do have a question for me or for Marty, start popping those into the chat and we'll get back to those in a moment. I'm going to invite our next guest. And so, Amit, I'll just invite you to turn off your camera. We'll invite in Carly. Carly Wells is our next guest, and she is the Senior Product Manager for ATB Booster as well as ATB Marketplace. Through ATB Marketplace, Carly helps Alberta businesses improve their sales through an e-commerce solution that allows companies to sell their goods and services through an online shopping platform year-round, targeted to Albertans. Welcome, Carly.
Hello, thanks for having me.
So great to have you here. And I'll just mention too that we'll post in the chat some more information about Carly and about Marketplace if you want to learn a little bit more about that. Carly, I kind of shared like the very brief version of what is Marketplace. Can you tell me a little bit more about it?
Yeah, of course. So we created the ATB Marketplace in January of this year. Right when things started closing back down, we decided that we needed to find a way to get some of those small businesses online that didn't have the e-commerce yet, and to do it in a very affordable way. So we look at it as a one-stop shop for anybody to come shop local Alberta businesses and find the business that they really love and want to continue to support.
So tell me a little bit more about how it can help entrepreneurs. Like what are some of the, I think, a lot of us entrepreneurs are like, okay, that sounds cool, Carly, but there must be a catch. It's probably like super expensive. I don't know. Like, tell me a little bit more about the nitty gritty. What does this look like and how could it help us?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's a really great platform for, again, like I mentioned, businesses that might not be online yet, or are still very new and exploring what that looks like for them. And so we've created this, like I said, the one-stop shop where if you already have your own Shopify account, you can integrate into our Shopify because that's what we are using as our platform. And you can also just create your own page. It's very, I don't want to say this, but it's very similar to kind of Etsy, of like where you can have your own store within our store and just get out to more of an audience, right? And just maybe test out some of your stuff with our audience versus who you normally see. And again, I said it's not very expensive right now. We still have a platform. It's free other than the 2.9% and 30 cents per transaction fee that's automatically charged off your purchase that gets made. And the reason we've done it for free for now is it's still so uncertain with COVID. And as we're potentially going into this fourth wave right now, we just want to really make sure that we're here to lift these small businesses up and support them through it all.
And I love that Stephanie's saying it's a great way to shop for local gifts, which is so cool. And Lindsay's mentioning, there's all sorts of different types of businesses on Marketplace. I want to come back to that in a second and ask you a little bit more about that. But I think what I've found is that as a business, we need to have part of our sales strategy is increasing our discoverability, right? And so being able to hone in on that local market might be different than, say, if someone has a Shopify account that's so much wider, right? To be able to kind of narrow that funnel in a little bit more so you can speak to people in a more nuanced way, right? And say, hey, we've got a great product for you as an Albertan, and here's why, and here's why you might want to support us, as opposed to just shopping for this on Amazon, right? And I'm always curious when I see something like this, like what businesses are using it well. And I wonder if you could tell me maybe an example of some businesses you've seen that have really gotten the most out of Marketplace.
Yeah, I mean, we've got two of our top sellers that I see all the time whenever sales are going through. We've got Revita Energy Tea as well as Caramunchies. And I mean, I think too, for them, they're two really great businesses that have such strong stories behind their businesses and their why. And like, for example, Caramunchies, local Edmonton, we love Alicia. She's a former Xer, former booster.
Yeah, love Alicia.
Person, always like, right. It's really cool. And you know, she started it because her family always cooked, and just her story behind it all. And it's this homemade caramel, and it's such the best snacks ever. If you guys haven't tried it, you need to.
Oh my gosh, I'm addicted a little bit.
So addictive, yeah. So it's just, I find that both Revita and Caramunchies, because they have such a strong story on their product pages as well, it just really ties into people, and you get that emotional connection, right? And I think that that's something that's so important, is you need to be a really strong storyteller to have a really successful online platform, especially if people can't see you in person. I need to find a way that I can connect with you.
I love that point that you're saying there, Carly, about like the finding a way to connect, right? Because you're right, it is different when we don't see someone in person, or even when we can't touch or feel that product or see that service too, right? So I think that's absolutely, that story becomes so fundamental. And I agree with you, both of those companies are doing a great job of doing that. I think of, you know, like even just how Revita has really personalized that experience for people, right? So I know I've seen it pop up in my Instagram feed where some of my friends have bought their product and then get this amazing like personalized note, which that's also part of the story, right? It's part of that customer experience. I think if we want to talk about scaling your sales, it's also about like, how do you treat that customer, right?
Exactly. And just those notes just make that much more of a difference, that I want to come back and keep buying more from them, because every time I do, I'm getting that note and just continuing being thanked for my business, right? So I think that thank you goes such a long way.
So question for you, we've talked about two businesses that both have products. Is there an option for this for folks that have services as well?
Yeah, we've got a lot of different restaurants, liquor stores, massage places that have gift cards on there as well. And I mean, again, during the pandemic, especially for some of our hair salons and massage places, they couldn't be open during the pandemic. So at least having that gift card on there so that somebody can come in later on and use it is really great. Like we look at people, we've got Fine Arts, we've got OEB. So we've got lots of different really cool places that are on there as well.
And I love that, because I think someone might come onto Marketplace and they might initially be looking for, oh, I'm going to get connected with, you know, some product that I want to give as a gift, find something local. And then they stumble across other pieces, and they stumble across, that gift certificate for OEB or for Fine Arts, and they, you know, end up just adding that to their cart too, you know, a little gift for someone else, a little gift for myself, right? It's kind of, I think that's a really great way. So, I mean, for those that want to start more, is there something they need to do to qualify or to apply? How do they get started, Carly?
Yeah, so I mean, the only thing that we require is being an Alberta-based business. You don't have to be an ATB customer or not. It's as long as you're running a business in Alberta. And I believe they are going to be sharing the URL that we have. We've got this really great spot. It's hello.atb.com/ATB Marketplace, I believe is the URL. And you just go sign up there and you'll learn more, and you'll automatically get an email sent to you, and it'll teach you how to get yourself set up. You can connect with us directly at ATB Marketplace at atb.com. I'll put that in the chat as well. And we're here to help you get set up.
Thanks, Carly. It's awesome. I'm excited about this opportunity for folks. I think it's just one more tool in your toolbox to help scale your sales. And so I want to actually invite both of our other guests back in. So I'm going to invite both Amit and Marty to jump back in here and turn on your cameras. And I'd love to get some questions from folks in the chat. So if you've got a question for Amit or Marty, myself, or Carly, we are here to help brainstorm solutions for you to help you scale your sales. So drop those questions into the chat. I'd love to hear from you and hear what questions you might have. I think one of the questions that I want to go back to all of you about is just sort of if there's something that's been really working well for you in your business. I know, Amit, we kind of chatted a little bit about some of the ways in which you were able to scale your sales, right? And talked a little bit about that. I'd love to, kind of go back to each of you and say, okay, is there something that that you've seen that's helped you to scale your sales really well? And Carly, I mean, I'd love to hear too, if you have some examples of some of the folks that have been on Marketplace. I know we chatted about some of those, the storytelling, those kinds of pieces, but what's helped you personally? And maybe I'll just share a little bit about that myself. I think for me, a really big piece has been understanding that if I want to scale my sales, I have to feel okay about selling, right? I think sometimes we feel almost bad to sell. There's this like very weird, almost Canadianism thing that I think we have of being like, oh, like I don't want to push you too hard, or maybe I'll come across as like this used salesman kind of an idea, right? Instead of realizing that, you know what, sales can actually be an act of service. That if someone really needs what I have to sell, then when they find me, that is amazing. It's an opportunity then for them to meet their need. And so for myself, my company specializes in digital media production, right? And I know that when I find a good match, it's someone who says, wow, like this is feeling overwhelming for me. I really don't know how to tell this story effectively. I don't know how to do it in a digital media landscape. And when we connect, I can say to them, I can help you with that. I can make this be painless for you. And that's when I know that it's going to be a great match. And so I think that's been a huge thing for me, is just to take that weight off my shoulder of saying, this isn't about me like getting out there and feeling really skeezy about my sale. It's actually about being able to provide exactly what's needed for somebody and meet them where their need is at, right? And so that's been a big learning for me as I've been, scaling my own sales. Marty, maybe I'll go to you next, and then Amit, and afterwards Carly. Marty, is there something that for you has really helped you to kind of scale your sales?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think all of us have business experience. One thing that's worked well for us, especially during the pandemic, it killed the extroverts that we can't meet with our customers, right? So especially myself, I think we're all extroverts, sorry, and I need to be drinking coffee for a living, right? As I joke, but one area that we really worked hard on during the pandemic was just stay in touch, having those touch points. So again, that's where you can leverage your CRM, right? Like make a note in your CRM to ping you at 3 months to say hi to Kate, or remember something that your last conversation surrounded, and just make a comment. Again, like Kate said, you don't want to be a used salesman, but just staying in touch with our best clients really helped us. In recruiting, there's only so many companies that will use us. So it's primarily the bigger head offices in Alberta, but we were very consistent, staying in touch with our best clients, and just calling them and just saying how's life, and they appreciated us reaching out to them. And another area that's always worked well for us is penetrating those bigger accounts. So when you have a relationship with a client, it's crucial that you say, like, Kate, is there anyone else that could, use our services in your organization?
Yes.
That's basic sales, but a lot of people don't do it, sadly. But you want to penetrate your best accounts, and it's amazing when you have that trust and relationship. You'd be surprised, they want to help you. So if you don't ask, you're not going to get more business. So you're all trying to build your biz. Your best customers will help you, and you can live a very comfy life as an entrepreneur, just if you're just a kind and genuine person, and your customers will help you. They'll find you business. Let's be honest, you do business with your friends and who you trust. So ask your best clients, is there anyone else that could benefit from our services, and then leave it there.
I love that. I think it's a great takeaway there, Marty, of, just remembering to ask. And I know one of the big pieces that we take out of ATB X, and something that's become a bit of a mantra, thank you, Amanda Wagner, is don't ask, don't get. We are constantly referencing that. And so I love that you're reminding us to make sure we ask. Amit, has there been something for you that has been that thing that's kind of unlocked your space to be able to keep scaling your sales?
I think it's kind of the same answer as before. It's really just double downing on the community side of things. I know that a lot of people don't understand Google Ads. Some days I barely understand it. So I can only imagine what happens to everybody else when someone starts talking about like coding. My mind just goes blank. So I assume that that's the same thing that happens to everybody around me when I start talking about Google Ads. So very early on in my career, I realized that I had to break it down into like very digestible like steps, I guess, or pieces of information. So now all of our social content echoes that. So a lot of times the feedback that we get is this made it so much easier to understand, because the only way you're going to actually purchase something is if you actually understand what it is. So for me, that's kind of been the strategy, is the more people are educated on pay-per-click advertising, the better it's going to be for me and also my fellow agencies really at this point. So for me, I just continually just keep on trying to engage with the community, make them realize obviously that I'm still around, and if they need questions answered, I'm right here. They don't need to go anywhere else. They don't need to go to Google. They don't need to, pay hundreds, if not thousands of dollars to have somebody else answer that one little question. As long as it's in the DMs, it's fine. I'll literally take the time and I'll do it. And that's what's really kind of brought back everything.
Absolutely. It's that relationship, right, that you're talking about. You're building that relationship. I think someone in the chat earlier said, yeah, hey, you can even use those CRM tools to let someone know, hey, happy birthday, and connecting with them that way. But I love, Amit, that you're showing up where your clients are also showing up, that you're talking to them on Instagram, you are reaching out through multiple channels. Carly, I want to come to you, and then we've got quite a few great questions in the chat, so we'll go to that next. But anything that you've seen, with some of the businesses you've been working with that has helped them to kind of open up or scale their sales?
Yeah, I mean, I think in this case, I probably talk more about our ATB Booster program, especially when you're crowdfunding and trying to ask for money and trying to pre-sell a product, service, or experience, right? And we've always said to them, you need to know your audience. You need to not be afraid to ask for support, right? I think one of the things people forget about is like, you're not just asking people for money, you're selling them something, you're giving them something in return, right? And it's exactly what everyone else has already said. If you don't ask, you're not going to get anything, right? And the worst thing they say is no, and you just keep selling other people on it. It's
totally.
Yeah, that's I think the best thing to do is just keep asking.
So this is the number one takeaway from today, is make sure you ask. I want to take a question from Melanie, who's asking, how do you keep your leads from getting sticker shock through the sales process? And such a great question, Melanie. I think for myself with, media production, if we're doing a full documentary film, that gets real expensive real quick. And so I totally can relate to this question about sticker shock. And I know for us, I make sure that that's not something that I put out on my website. So there isn't a piece that said, this is how much, it's going to be, because I want to chat through and hear where people are at. What do they need this product for? Am I actually the best fit for them? So as I ask them some questions, I might be able to determine whether they're actually a good qualified lead for the level of service I would provide, or whether it would be better for me to refer them to someone else that's more within their price point. So it's okay to say no to a lead that is not qualified for you, and to help build our business ecosystem by referring them to someone else for whom they might be a better fit, right? So I'd say that's my big piece on sticker shock. Marty or Meet, either of you want to speak to this? I'll just invite you to jump in if you do. Amit, look like
it's always so awkward because you're just like, who talks first?
You go ahead.
I think for us, we don't necessarily avoid it, which I understand is an odd strategy, just because there's ad spend that's involved, and then also our management fee. So it's kind of it's going to naturally be relatively expensive for businesses. So we like to kind of just let them know right off the bat. But the one thing that we do in that whole sales process is reinforce the fact that we are literally the experts. I've been in the industry 12 years next month. Not a lot of people can say that. And even my experience wise, like I worked very hand in hand with Google for about 2.5 years as well. And I was one of 25 25 North Americans at that point, and 25 in the world. So there's only another 24 people who can literally say the same thing as me really at this point. So it's more or less of just kind of being right in the front, being like, we're constantly learning. We're literally specialists. My Google ads people do not do Facebook ads. My Facebook ads people do not do Google ads. They're strict in their specialty. So they know literally everything they need to know. There's nothing getting, falling through the cracks in terms of information and updates. And that tends to really help, because then once you've positioned yourself as the expert, the money part doesn't matter as much anymore. They go, yes, I trust it. I'm going to make my money back. So what's the extra $100, $200, $300 a month or whatever it is?
Well, and I think you've so hit it on the head, is it's that trust piece, right? And as you can speak to your own credibility, you're building that trust. And I think I would add to that too, like if you don't have testimonials from some of the folks that have used your product, that's a great place to maybe start with this and start building that trust, and making sure that you're getting that feedback from clients who love your service, because that helps people avoid that sticker shock. Marty, anything that you wanted to add there before we go to the next question?
Yeah, the famous price objection. You know what? All an objection is they need more information, right? I've learned that in my retail days, and avoid it. So if you do the steps of a sale, we all know the steps of a sale, but there's tons of acronyms out there. But if you understand your client, so ask them, what's your budget? Like right off the bat, like once you do your ice breaking, whatever else you're doing, but you want to understand them, you want to have the knowledge. So they don't give you objections, but it's going to happen. But if they trust you and they like you, just like Amit's saying, and you're not going to be the cheapest, you're not going to be the most expensive, and that's okay. Not everyone's going to be your customer. I learned that years ago, and I want to please everyone. I don't want to lose any business, but if they're buying me, my name is important to me, my company's name is important, we'll give you world-class service. There's maybe companies that will give better service that are cheaper. Then fill your boots, then they can go there. But if you stick to your guns and you understand them, you understand, you've got the knowledge of what they want. If they like you, it's going to be very hard for them to say no to you. And that's back to everything in business is relationships. So just think about your friend. You can't say no to a friend, right? Or family member if you're ethical and you do everything right. So, but even then, I've lost business where I thought, oh, this is a slam dunk. And they're like, Marty, I can get it cheaper. I'm like, okay. But I've done everything from that knowledge and from, information. I understand the client, and, it's going to happen that they're going to get that sticker shock. And it happens to us in our cloud solutions company, and that's okay. But as long as you do your due diligence, don't worry about it. They're not your customer. They're not a good customer for you.
Yeah, I think that's so key, is just knowing who do you want as that customer. But as you're also saying, is that we can compete on that client experience, and really endeavoring to have a great experience for folks will oftentimes be something that's more valuable to them than just competing on price, right? Nicole asks us a great question. And so Nicole is saying, if you're starting a business on a small budget, how can you best integrate resources like Google Ads and analytics? Or is it not even worth starting until these are affordable? Amit, I'm going to throw this straight to you. Do we have to wait until we're in the big time to start? Or is there a way to get started a little bit sooner?
Well, Google Analytics is completely free. So if you don't have it on your website, please just it's a couple seconds worth of work. It's like one of those big things for me where I'm like, I need to have Google Analytics. Otherwise, I can't operate in my own daily life. But on the Google Ads front, or even just regular ads front, you can actually go as little as $5 a day if you really wanted to. At that point, you likely need to learn a little bit of Google Ads and manage them yourself, because hiring a freelancer at that point will likely end up costing you more money. But it's possible. It's definitely possible. I've had a lot of our clients actually start advertising on their own and then go, you know what, this is too big for me now. We need you to deal with it. Even like one client scaled his account to 20K a month and then went, this is enough. I don't want to do this anymore. And I'm like, hand it over. We'll take it. We're good. So it's like one of those things where you just need to learn. If you're willing to learn about it, you can literally make any budget work. It's just the notion of actually having to put in that man hour as well.
Absolutely. Man hours or women hours, or however you identify the time. Yeah, exactly. No, and I think that's a really great point, right? That we can access this, and that it's accessible at various price points. It's kind of the sky is the limit a little bit about how much we want to keep going into it. I see a great question here from Lindsay, and I want to go to you, Marty, around this. Lindsay's asking, how do we incorporate our values into the sales process? I know before you were kind of mentioning a little bit about making sure those values are listed in a job posting. Can you expand a little bit more about that as well?
Yeah. So we have our values on both our websites. So just so you folks know, our values that we put together were building relationships, customer focus, and entrepreneurship. So there's obviously sub characteristics under those three values, but we do talk about it in our interview process for not just sales folks, but technical folks as well. And we do that for our candidates too. So our candidates that we place, and they're indirectly placed through our company, but they work for ATB or Enbridge. So, but we always live and breathe by those three values, and we ensure that if our client hires us, we're not going to send them over to our client unless we would hire them. So if they exhibit those values, with building relationships, customer focused delivery and entrepreneurship, being taking ownership and standing by their results, the way they act in the marketplace. It's very important that that they exhibit those qualities, and that's helped us grow our business because we live by those values. So I think it's very important that they see that if you don't have values built, I encourage you to put together some values and embed them into your website and live by them and start talking about them. And that's a good interview question you can ask. So, hey, you went on our website. What do you think about our values? And let them just go on and see how passionate they are about your values. And if you get that negative feeling that they didn't, number one, read your website or they don't know about it, then they're not the right person for you. So I really think it's a huge area to focus on to hire people within your organization.
Absolutely. And I'd say that if this is a topic that's really intriguing you, definitely check out. We had a webinar that we did earlier last month that talked about growing beyond the founder and, just helping to think about how do you start to build those values in. And that's something that we do with a lot of the businesses that come through ATB X is helping to build in those values and make sure that they're part of all of your operations. So I think what you're saying is so key, Marty. And I know for myself, when I'm hiring, I look at my values and I purposefully create interview questions that match to each of those values to be able to test for those values and to see.
Yeah, and if I could just add to Lindsay's question, sorry, Kate, I get excited about this. Is do I look for the clients that align with that culture? 100%. That's a great icebreaker with any potential client. Obviously, if you're not researching your client or whoever you're going to meet, please do so. Know about the company you're talking to. So ensure that you look at their values, and that can be part of your ice breaking with them. And you could say, hey, Kate, I noticed your value is entrepreneurship. That's so awesome. That's actually similar to our values. So that'll generate trust when you see that your client has similar values to your organization. But it's a great talking point with your client. And we do it all the time with some of our larger clients that, because then they appreciate that you're focused in that area as well.
Absolutely. So I noticed that Blair shared a bunch of great book recommendations and some other CRM tools. I think this is a great question for us to end on. So this is sort of like the speed round here. I'm going to start with you, Carly, then come back to me and Marty, and I'll close us off here. But I'm wondering if there's one tool or one book or one resource that you would recommend for folks to check out if they really want to keep scaling their sales process. And I fully welcome shameless plugs as well. So Carly, I'll go over to you. Is there something that you'd recommend to folks to check out?
Oh gosh, well, you have to start with me. Put me on the spot right now. I'm like, let me see what I've got in my books in here. No, I think just checking out different handbooks of different sites in terms of e-commerce, whether that be on Etsy, Shopify, just reading all those kind of things to learn more about how to get online and start selling things.
Amazing. I love that. And I think absolutely check out Marketplace too.
Yes.
It's a great resource for you as you're scaling. I mean, over to you. One thing you'd recommend.
Oh gosh. For a CRM tool, I guess I really like Dubsado. It's a newer tool, but they're constantly evolving it. So now they've got an education portal. So if you ever wanted to put in education pieces for your clients, you could literally have something there already.
Cool.
So something like for us, having a glossary so they understand the terms that we're using and all of that stuff is super duper important. So I would say that I don't do a lot of reading unless it's blogging or really at this point or watching videos. So I don't really have a book to suggest on that side of things.
That's all right. You've got a good one. I like Dubsado. Yeah. That's great. I'll look to you here, Marty.
One of my favorite books, really simple to read. It's Jeffrey Gitomer. I don't know if I pronounce his name right, but I followed the guy for years. I'll put it in the feed, but he's got a little red book on sales, and it's very simple. It's basically talks about all the fundamentals of being an effective salesperson, but he's got a couple of books, but like Amit, I haven't read lots of books lately, but I've read lots of sales books in my day. I've been in sales for 25 years. So, but that's a good one, Jeffrey Gitomer. And the last thing really quickly is network with people, learn from the learned. So join a network and association. I'm failing in that area. I need to do more of it, but we just came out of COVID, but network, learn from people that are more successful than you, and you get around those people, you can't go wrong.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much to all of you. Really appreciate your time today. I do just want to share here again, we talked about earlier some of these guiding questions. We will be sharing this deck with you all, so you'll receive a copy of this afterwards. But just reminding you that these are pieces you want to go back and chat with your team about. Make sure that they are familiar with them. And if you're wanting to check out and connect more with these folks that we've been chatting with today, I've just popped up some of their information there again, just in case you didn't get it earlier. Feel free to screenshot that real quick. And we've got some great tips that'll be shared with you on the deck. So I know Marty shared with us some of his top 3 tips around the HR vetting process, hiring for culture fit, tech tools and operations. So that'll be coming your way, as well as some more information just to summarize what Marketplace is all about, so that you've got that there handy for yourselves. And so know that that's coming your way. We want to invite you to sign up for our newsletter and stay in the know about future events. So please do check out that newsletter link. It's going to be up there in the chat here in a second. And if you're growing your business, you're bringing on new employees, you're expanding geographically, you're exploring new products, services, or offerings, I really invite you to apply for our winter cohort of ATB X. These great folks, Amit and Marty, have both been through it. It was amazing to work with them, and I'd love to work with you and your company and help you reach your growth goals. You really don't have to do this alone. You can join us to connect with other entrepreneurs, business experts, and be part of a community. We really all stay connected. Once you're part of X, we stay connected to you because we love supporting our folks. And so know that it's customized, and that each business that is accepted, we work with you to help you reach those goals. This is entrepreneur education for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs. And so you can learn more and apply at atb.com/ATBX. One final note, just on a quick personal level, my production company is hosting a screening of the Secret Marathon film, which shares the story of the first women to run a marathon in Afghanistan. I know a lot of us have been overwhelmed by what's happening in Afghanistan this week, and so I hope that you'll be able to join us as we raise funds to support women and girls there. As we said today, if you don't ask, you don't get. So this is my ask. I'd love to support these amazing women and this community. And we'll put the link into the chat here if you'd like to be able to join us. I'm really proud to say that ATB is helping to sponsor this event, so that all of the ticket proceeds are going directly towards charity. And I'll invite you that you can take our survey. There's a link up there at the top for you. I wish you all a fantastic day. May your sales continue to grow. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.